I actually have some music that I'm going to play while we walk around. They are field songs.
Aubrey Wilkes' fifth graders are engaged in a gallery walk, examining primary sources, images, and documents from the period of American slavery. Her students are at the beginning of an interdisciplinary unit which concludes with every student creating a fictional memoir written from the perspective of a person whose life was affected by slavery, from slaves to masters, from children to adults. To consider multiple perspectives for their memoirs, her students have been examining a series of primary sources. We captured the class for 4 days in the week prior to starting their research, as they grappled with the complexity of the documents and the topic, finishing with a gallery walk and a Socratic seminar. We've created 2 short videos of the week, beginning with this video focused on primary source texts, and a second video focused on photographs and the seminar.
We used the week to explore the perspectives of the time. How could slavery have happened, become normal? How could people accept it? And really try to come to an understanding of perspectives using primary sources. I'd like for you to look at that target and tell me what is our goal today as we look at different sources. Lewis?
To compare 2 different authors' perspectives.
How will you know that you've made a good guess about what someone's perspective is? Janelle?
Support your claim with evidence.
So we began the week by looking at 2 quotes, one by George Fitzhugh, a plantation owner, and one by Frederick Douglass. When we looked at those 2 sources, we were able to take a large argument and focus it on 2 people's voices to kind of lay the groundwork for opposing perspectives, what justifies slavery and the argument against slavery that Frederick Douglass posed. And the first perspective that we're going to look at is from someone named George Fitzhugh. He actually wrote a book called Cannibals All, or Slaves Without Masters. Follow along with me and think, what is the gist? What's he trying to say? The Negro slave is free, too, when the labors of the day are over. So when the kids get the primary source documents, they know that we're not going to read it one time. For the master provides food, raiment, house, fuel, and everything else necessary to the physical well-being. Everybody's going to read it as many times as they need to read it, naming the things that good readers do. They might need to identify vocabulary. They might need to kind of highlight important ideas. They may need to jot down their questions or just chunk it. I saw almost everybody underline really important parts, and I saw some people circle like the word raiment. I helped you out. Do you see how there's these little flip cards? If you feel like you need to go look at the hint cards, you can. I want you to turn and talk for 1 minute. What is this guy saying? Go.
Trying to figure out the gist. I think that he's saying, like, they actually are free when they get done doing their work. They're free physically and mentally.
Because they're already kind of paying them because they're providing food, house, fuel, and everything else necessary.
The slaves are getting the best out of their master.
The master for them provides.
After a few minutes discussing George Fitzhugh's perspective, the class used the same close reading strategies to consider another view.
We have a second opinion.
Frederick Douglass was born into slavery in Talbot County.
We synthesized the activity that day by charting our ideas at the end. I'm going to ask you to just share out your thinking, and we're going to record it up here and just make it visible. What is George Fitzhugh's perspective or opinion? And then that stays visible for us as we go through the rest of the week. Taylor, I haven't heard from you very much.
His opinion is that slavery is good and that the slaves are free, like, at the end of the day. It says a Negro slave is free, too, when the labors of the day are over, and free as in mind as well as body. But the only thing is, though, is that I don't think he is correct.
Okay. So we'll hold off on that. We're just going to ask his opinion. I hear you saying, I totally disagree. Somebody give me the perspective that you think Frederick Douglass had. What was his opinion or point of view of slavery? Daquan?
He said that slaves didn't have a choice or a voice of decision.
Can you tell me what makes you say so?
Because he says they were not allowed to have a head to think and a heart to feel and a soul to inspire.
I'd like for you to grab the sheets that are in the basket, and this is your exit ticket today. I'm going to ask for you to do some comparing. How does slavery affect slaves, according to George Fitzhugh, and how does it affect slave owners? And then I want you to write your thoughts about Frederick Douglass. How does it affect slaves, and how does it
Having
affect...
explored opposing perspectives of two influential adults, the class considered a primary source that may have influenced some children's perspectives on slavery.
The next day we looked at a primary source, which was a children's book called Little Eva. It is Sabbath morning, and Eva, as usual, is reading the Bible to the colored people. She has learned some of them to read, but they would rather hear Eva read than read themselves. For they say her voice is so It's a sweet. Complex text, not because it's that difficult to read, but because it has a lot of hidden implications. Eva's parents were so pleased with Sam for saving Eva that they gave him his freedom. But he never left them. He loved them all too well. So I want you to look at your sheet, and there are 5 questions that I just want to preview with you.
Using a graphic organizer that pushed students to think beyond the literal meaning of the text, Aubrey asked her students to analyze the document as an artifact. When and where was it created? For whom? And for what purpose?
When I put this is probably created for the little kids like in first grade, and I said it because first graders probably start reading fairy tales.
That it's like a storytelling book, an entertainment story for young children.
Young kids.
When I looked at Little Eva this week, I noticed these facts were not true. Automatically, I knew this was not a book that was like giving us facts. The author is not as negative as other people.
Not everything we read is true. And I think sometimes that's not a given for kids. There has to be some sort of evaluation of the source.
Because he wants to keep slavery, he wants to keep slavery, and they both talk about how...
What is Phil Kozan, the author of Little Eva, what does he think of slavery? Daquan?
I think they're trying to tell him that slave owners are good, but I think it's just a cover-up, because I think it's like the slave master's side of the story.
I think the author doesn't want the people who read the book to think about it in a bad way, so I think he paraphrased it to make the people who read the book think about it in a better way.
Yeah, so I hear you saying the author's purpose again. He's trying to make it seem not so bad. Raise your hand if you have questions in your head right now. What I'd like for you to do is take 1 minute to just start listing all the questions that are in your head right now. And then we're going to kind of catch these today. All right, 10.